Okay, so now that we've seen how to write CSS on our page in the previous video. So let's see how we can put this CSS in our already existing JavaScript. So like in the video, so the first thing you want to do is to create a file, and you will name it the styles.css. So the .css is very important because it helps you to tell your web page that this is the styling file for your website. Okay, so go ahead and click enter, and now we have our styles.css. So the first thing we want to do is to create or link our CSS file in the to our index.html. So if the styles.css is standing alone, it doesn't really make sense. So we have to connect it to the index.html. So let's go back to the index.html, and here at the head section of your index.html, just as you have added the title inside, let's also add the CSS. And to add the CSS, we use something called the link tag. Okay, so the link tag is written like this. Okay, so it's written like this, and here inside the link tag we have a property called release, which is equal to the style sheet. Okay, and in that same link also we'll have a href, which will be equal to styles.css. okay, so styles.css is, so this is how we can link our style sheet to the HTML. So now our HTML knows that we have a styles file which we have referenced as styles.css. So this is the first step in working with an external CSS file. Now don't forget that we can also do styling inside our inside our HTML, because just like our p tag, we can do styling inside. Let's say we want to do our bold styling. We can say text, or you can say text size, or let's say size, okay, or area set size. Okay, so we can do all that inside our HTML, but we don't want to do that. In a more professional way, you would rather use an external CSS file, so which is what we want to do. Okay, so since we have hooked it up, don't forget that anytime you see the dots sign at the white dot up there, it means that you have not saved your file. So let's go ahead and also save the file. So let's save, or just press Ctrl and S at the same time. Okay, so now we have our style sheet has been added to our HTML. So let us also see how we can make use of our style sheet. So inside our style sheet, let's go inside our style sheet, and we want to put something like P and this, then we'll say font size, right, or font style. Let's put our font style to be, let's say, italic. Okay, so if you do this, and then it always ends in a semicolon. So if you save this, okay, if you save this, or before we save it, let us see what our web page looks like. So this is our web page, and now you will see that our p tag, where do we have our p tag? Our p tag is where? This is our p tag in our HTML. This is our p tag. So now we want to style this p tag. This is our quote, so it says this is our quote, and we want to style it. So look at how, okay, let me split my screen so that it becomes easier. Okay, So let me also reduce this one. All right, so now look at our, this is our quote would be our p tag. All right, so inside our p tag, we want to style our p tag. So this is how it looks like before styling. And so let me highlight this. This is how it looks like before styling. So now we want to style it to make it italic. So what we do is we select, we use the selector, which we have discussed, and we say P, which is our tag. I'll say P font style is italic. All right, so let's save, Control S, and when we refresh this, you would see that this has changed to italic. Okay, so that is how to style, guys. So your styling is very important because it makes your web page to look attractive to the users. Okay, all right, so now let's also continue with our web page. Let's go on. Okay, so now let's copy everything that we have inside the body and put it inside the container. Okay, so you copy everything. You can do that by just minimizing everything that you have here. Everything that you have here. Let's see the form, the body. Okay, so let's take everything that you have here. All right, everything that you have here, let's cut, Control X, and let's put it all in a div. Let's put it all in a div, and let's call our div that it has a class of what? Container. Our div class will be the container. All right, so inside our div class, let's add everything that we have done. So let's paste what we cut so that everything will be inside the container. All right, so now this makes it easier to work with because we have everything inside the container now. All right, let's go ahead and save file. Let's save, or Control S. So I love to use the Control S, which makes it easier. Okay, now that we have everything inside our container, which we did, we got everything inside a container. All right, so let's go and style our container, because now styling helps you to position your tags or elements anyhow you want. So especially when you put them inside a container, it becomes much easier to work with. So our container, we want to change it. We want to say that our container should be having a width. So our container should have a width. It shouldn't just start from the edge of our page. Like you can notice in most websites, you realize that your container, most websites use containers because the element or the tags don't start right from the edge of what you see. How close this one starts from the edge. Let me do this. So this one starts very close to the edge of our page, so you don't want that. So now setting a maximum width and a maximum or a margin would help to to situate your container anyhow you want it. So let's do that now. So what you want to do is to add that the container. So to select the container, this is how you select the container. You say dot container with the curly bracket, then you say that the maximum width should be, let's just set it to 850 pixels, and then also the margin should be 0, and it should be set to auto. Okay, so when we save this, let's see the effect it has on our page. I'm using Control S, then it saves, and then when I come here and refresh, what does it do? So now it has situated my, if you notice this, it was initially starting from the edge before, but now it has situated it right at the middle. So if we can, if we had elements by the right hand side, you will see that the elements won't just start from the beginning of the page. They would all start from almost having a space in between. Okay, so the spaces will be there. All right, so now we are done with starting our container. A good way to checkmate this, or to see which will be the best option for the best value for your maximum width, would be to check your developer tools. So the developer tools are a very good ways to really style your so you go to element to style your page. Okay, so you see here it says 8 pixel margin. So let's see what our page says. So if we go down, you see that our container has 850 pixels. So you can adjust this just to see what you would really want. Okay, so when you click here, you would see that the spaces which it gave would be highlighted by the orange color. So you can decide to also edit your values from here, and here you can say you can try out 800 just to see what it looks like. Also, you can try out 700 or 600 just so that you see what your page would look like without, you see that. So it means that the lower you come, the bigger the margin. All right, so the higher you see that. So when you move, you can now adjust your page to anywhere that you feel comfortable. So the more you move it, you would see that the page keeps moving. So depending on where you want your page to start from, you can decide to start it from 900 or 910 pixel or even 900. So now it's your choice to make, to decide what your pixel maximum width should be. Okay, so each time you finish editing from developer tools, it is also a wise idea to copy the you can copy the values that you have here. All you just need to do is to copy or copy values, and then you can come on your CSS and then you paste it on your CSS. So that makes your changes to be permanent. All right. So another good way to approach our page would be that the professional or the profile picture or professional title side should be in a div, okay, so that it becomes easier to style that div. All right, so don't forget that this is our professional title tag and this is where it stopped. Okay, so we can really format this so that we do it, we put it the way we want. All right, so we also didn't put a comment on this, so commenting this will be a right thing to do. Let's comment it and say that this should be our introduction. So did you remember how to comment? So you can put your comment in such a way like this, like that. All right, so now we can say that this is our this professional, or what I say, professional title. This is a professional title section. All right, so that's our professional title section. So it makes us able to put this our div. All right, so we can put our div in here. So professional title, we can also So we can take this div and we'll put it in Ctrl Z. We'll put it in a div, and we can rename it Ctrl X, and let's add a div. No, Ctrl Z. Let's add a div, and our div, we'll call it with a class, the class of intro. All right, therefore we can paste our div inside there. So it means that we can now comfortably target our intro section. All right, so our intro section can be targeted. All right, so we can select it and then we'll target it. All right, so let's go and do that. So don't forget that we also have our dot there, so it means that it's not, well, it has not been saved. So let's Ctrl S, and here let's go over to our style sheet and target our intro with the selector intro. Okay, so we can target that with the dot intro. Okay, so that we can text align our values to what? Center. We can center our values. Okay, so our values will be centered. So let's also save, because we have a white dot. So let's Ctrl S, and you realize that when you come to your page now to refresh, you will see that the page will look different. Let's close our developer tools and let's refresh. You see, now everything inside our intro section has been centralized. Okay, so everything inside our intro section has been centralized. That is a very good one. So because we didn't target everything, we only targeted those which were inside the intro section. That is why the other things are still aligned to the left. Don't forget that we text aligned our intro to the center. Okay, so it means that each time that we centralize something, it will be at the center. Right, so CSS is very interesting, guys. Okay, now let's go over to the about me grid. So this is the about section. All right, so we would want our about section. Let's add some more things to our about section. All right, so let's go to, this is the div which contains our about section. All right, and this div also contains the I am, a pilot, a chef, a pastor. So let's also copy this and have two columns in this row. All right, so instead of this, let's say this class, let's say this is I like to, and this is another list, and let's say this is meet new people. Right, so say meet new people, and this is also play guitar, and this should be eat ice cream. Okay, so that is that. So now one thing I would want us to do is to give our divs names. So let's classify our divs. So let's classify this div to be what? Our about grid. Okay, so let's classify our div to be what? On the about grid. Okay, and also let's also classify our next div to be what? The I am. Okay, so this is I am, and then another list, let's put this to be what? Classified as what? About list. Okay, so that should be that. And also the next div on the same row should be classified as I like, and the another list should be classified as about list. Okay, so now you realize that because we want these to be on the same row, so we'll classify them at the same row. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and now style them. So we want to save this, Control S, and go here, and now you can put the style for our about grid. So what did we name it? The about grid. So let's go over to the dot about grid. Okay, and let's put that to be display. Should not be inline, should be rather be grid. Okay, so this falls under the CSS grid, and also our grid template columns should be 50%, 50%, 50%. Okay, and then also let's advance into our other tags. So the div inside, which is the I am and I like, we can target them individually, but here let me show you how to target them one at a time. So you can say that dot I am, comma, dot I like, and now you can now put that text align should be center, and text decoration should be none. All right, good. So let's see how that looks, but before then let's also add the about list. Let's see where the about list is. This is the about grid, and this is the about list. Okay, so our about list is the ones that's supposed to be on the same column, on the same row, right? So let's say that the about list is here. Yeah, we can say that the list style is what? None. And then the padding should be 0. Okay, so let's save, Control S, or let's go to the file and save and see how our web page will look like. So let me maximize this, and here it is. Let's refresh. Okay, so did you see that our page, our I am and I like were basically on the same line before, but now they are on the same row. They are on the same row. Okay, so on the same row and different columns. Okay, so that is how to put two text on the same rows and different columns. Okay, so from there we can see that our I am and I like, we are all text centered and not decorated. Okay, now if we are to remove this, the text align and text decoration, let's see what happens to our Control S. Let's see what happened to our page. So our page, let's refresh. You will see that they are on the same line, but they are not centered. Okay, they're all left aligned. So let's go back and add that. Control V, and text align center, text decoration none, and let's save. And there we refresh, and you see that they are text aligned center. Okay, so a good way to check this would be to use our developer tools. So you can do this and say inspect, and here you will see that our another list, the about list, is the another list, and going up you see that you have the div of I am. All right, and going higher you see that the div will be the about grid. All right, so the about grid is very looking good. So our intro section is up, our about grid is here, and here's our div for I am, and here's our div, our another list for about list. Okay, so this is the CSS grid system. Okay, so let's head back to our HTML. Okay, so now we want to style the portfolio section. So our portfolio section is not styled. So here's how it looks like. Still having 3 portfolios. Okay, so let's close this down, and this is our 3 portfolios. So let's see how to style that. So before then, a good way to really look at your website as how it looks or feels on different devices is to inspect, which you already know. So inspections can come in different ways. So this inspection we've been doing previously has been with respect to the desktop version. So but also you can do a mobile version inspection. So to do that, you can see a sign here which shows you that it toggles device toolbar. Okay, so if you click on that sign, you will see that there is there's a lot to notice here, right? So the device also can be changed. You can decide to select the type of device that you want your website to be very familiar with. So you can say iPhone SE. All right, so your iPhone SE. So with this, you can see how your website can look on an iPhone SE. Okay, so also you can see how it looks on an iPhone 12 Pro. All right, so that is that for that. But this doesn't look so good. So the best way to make it more what we call the best way to make it look more beautiful would be to make it responsive. Okay, so that as the width and the dimension of your website or your device increases, it will adjust to it. So that is the responsiveness of a website or a web page. So to do that, we have to include something that is missing from our HTML. So let's go back to our HTML, and here we can add on our head section, we can add just above the title section and have what we call a meta tag. Okay, so your meta tag should have a name property, which should be what? Viewport. And then you should also have what? A content, and your content should be what? Width, and your content width should be the device width, and also our initial scale should be equal to 1. All right. right? So that will be our viewport. So this helps your device to locate the type of or the size of the page and readjust accordingly. So let's save this. Okay, so now let's go ahead and refresh our page and see what is going to happen. So if we refresh our page, right, we have added the viewport. Okay, so that'll be that. So a good way to look at this, so once we put this to be the iPhone SE, you would realize that our page is now very responsive. Okay, so but again, you would see that our CSS grid system doesn't respond as the case as we wanted. Okay, so now we should want at least our I am to be on a separate line from our I like to whenever the screen size is reduced. You see how our profile pictures have all aligned down one after the other, but our about has not aligned. So to do that, to make it to align to the to respond to the screen size, we'll need what we call the media query. All right, so the media query goes like this. So now let's go back to our CSS, and our CSS, in our CSS we want to have a media query or media, and this should have a maximum width, which should be set to what, 480 pixel. Okay, and then we'll have that about grid. Our about grid should be aligned. The grid template column should be 100%. Okay, so that's all we need for our page to be responsive. So now let's save that, Control S, and when we go back, you will see that because we stated in our page that once our maximum width gets up to 480 pixel, then it should fire up our media query, and our grid, our about grid, should turn 100%. All right, so initially our grid now is 50-50, right? 50-50%. Okay, so but we're saying that once it gets to 480 pixel, it should turn to 100, which means that these the about sections should all be on one line, that is 100%. The width should be 100%. So now let's refresh this and see what that gives us. Yes, so now they are both at 100%. Okay, so that is that for that. That's how to center your and put them on the same line. So notice that once we begin to increase this our page, let's say now it should be responsive, and notice that once we begin to reduce and also look at the values here, okay, so once it gets to 480, you will see that our about sections would take 100% size. So let's do that now. Let's see, let's reduce up to 480, 400, and yes, that's 486 and 479, 480. See, that's 484. So once it gets to 480, it should turn to the same line. Okay, so now let's go over to our project section. Now the project section is having this. All right, so we have just three projects on our portfolio section. Okay, so do we add one more? Let's go ahead and add one more. Let's click this and add one more. Let's add one. All right, so we have 4 projects now in our portfolio. Okay, so when you do that, you would realize that okay, so after we've added one more project, let's now save, Control S, and let's see how our website looks like now. Let us refresh here, and you see that our website is here. Okay, so this does not look very presentable, as my project is just by the left hand side. So we want everything to be looking very okay, and you see that our 4 projects are all not looking very well, although they are beside each other. So let's go ahead and start this. Now let's now call our project the div. We call it our project, and also let's put our project inside a grid, okay, or a div. Okay, so let's come here and copy or cut, and let's put a div here, and let's paste our div. Also, we can now say that our div class will be projects grid. All right, so it will be easier to style this way, since we know the class now to be project grid. Okay, so let's save and go and style the div. All right, so let's head over to the styles.css, and just below our media query we can now add. So notice that our CSS does not have any much of structure, so you can decide to arrange it anyhow you like, but like I said at the earlier sections, it is always very useful if you can arrange your work with respect to your fellow developers. I mean, you can arrange it in such a way that another developer can pick it up and understand what you are trying to achieve. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our project heading section. So okay, so this our h3. You can also style our h3 by giving it a class. Okay, so we can classify it, and then we can say it's project heading. Okay, so our project heading should also be worked on. So let's Control S it. Okay, and so we have saved it. Now let's go to our styles and target our project heading. So a good way to also work on Visual Studio would be to use your windows with respect to each other. That's arrange them, split your windows. Okay, so to do that, you come here and you click split. All right, so now the split has your HTML on the right hand side, and you can as well just put your CSS on this other side. All right, so that you can close your HTML here. All right, so here you can work alongside each other, you can work simultaneously. So here you can select your heading, project heading, you say copy, or you can just target it project heading, the project heading, and with that you can now say that the text align should be centered, right? So our heading should be centered. Let's go and look at that. Let's save, Control S, and let's go and look at what we have just done. So we are saying that our project, my project's heading should be centered. So let's refresh and see if it's centered. Okay, so you see it is centered. It has come to the center, right? So let's go back to our VS Code, and here we also want our projects to display in a 50-50 pattern. So let's target our project grid, right? So let's put the project grid, project grid, and let's put it display to grid. All right, and also let's put the grid template columns to be what, 50%, 50%. All right, so in that case we can also go over to also style our images. All right, so where are the images again? A project image, right? So our images are only just images at this point, so they only have source properties. So let's add class to them. So let's classify our images. Our image can be classified as project image, and the same thing, you can just replicate that by copying this and pasting and also pasting. Okay, so we have our project images. So let's save, Control S, and let's now target our project images. So it should be dot project image, right? So our project image, we want them to be centered, right? So that will be a property called justify content, and let's set it to center. All right, or another way is to change this to justify self to center, and then also we'll add some padding to it. So what is padding? Well, let's look at our website now, and if we save, let's add the padding to be what? To be 4%. All right, so our padding is 4%. All right, so let's save, and now let's go over to our page and refresh and see what that means. Did you see that our images now have patterns in between? So this is a very good looking way to present your project. So now let's inspect and see how our pattern had effect on our project. Okay, so you can lift this up a little bit, and here you are, the project grid. Okay, so we have said that the padding should be 4%. So where does it apply though? It applies on the project image. Okay, so our project image has a padding of 4%. Okay, so what if we decide to increase our padding to 40%? Did you see that it has now changed to 40%? Alright, so but 40% will be rather too bogus. Let us leave it at 5% at least. Alright, but if we keep on changing, you would see the impact of your changes. Okay, so as you work on your project, always use your developer tools because they will definitely help you. See what the padding does. The padding actually separates the images, so let's reduce that to 10. So if we reduce that to 10, you see what that 10 is. So reduce it to 1, it becomes that. So that's why we set it to 5. You see 5 is more, so let's leave it at 4. That's why what the padding does for you. Okay, so always play around with your designs so that you see what would be best for you. Okay, so we are not done with that. Now if we decide to inspect on a mobile, with mobile responsiveness at heart, you would realize that our images are not well placed. Okay, so our images are not well placed because we have not done anything to make them to be well placed. So now let's, okay, I keep calling them images, but they're projects. Okay, so now let's arrange our project in such a way that once a person is viewing with a smaller screen, it becomes centered. All right, so let's arrange our project to become centered. So to do that, remember we used media query in the previous section. Okay, so now let us see what would be a better way, or a better screen size or width to set our media query on. Now if we change out to responsiveness and we adjust, you would realize that as we go and go, you'll see that at this point we need to change our at this point around 738 or around 740, so around 740, 38, 37, 36, 37, 38, so around 740 thereabout, we need to switch our images to be 100% width. Okay, so let's do that now. So to do that, let's add our media query. So let's put that media query, and we have our maximum width to be what did we say? 740. So let's use 740. Right, so maximum width will be 740 pixel. Right, and there, when it gets to that, then our project grid, that should be project grid here. Right, our project grid should be what? Should be the grid template columns should be 100%. 100%. Okay, so let's save that and see what that can give us. Ctrl S, and when we come back here and we'll refresh. Alright, so it's 738 now. 738. Oh, there was no influence. Okay, so why is that? So why is that giving us a wrong function? Okay, so let's see. 740. Okay, you should be able to work out. Okay, let's see what that. Let's refresh, and now let's see. Oh, it didn't happen. So let's see what the problem is. Project grid. Oh, there it is. So we called it project grid, and here it is project grid. So let's put that as. So you see how an error can make you spend a lot of time, debugging your code. So let's Ctrl S, and when we refresh, we'll see that at that stage. So let's leave it at responsive first, and at 740 at exactly 740, it should be able to change. Okay, so that's that for that. That'll be that for our final section, which is my project. So also we move on to the next section, which is the forms or contact section. Okay, so we have the link section, link and contact section. Okay, so let's go over to our link and contact section. So this is the links, this is a div. All right, so our div class should be what? Links and contact. Links and contact. Okay, therefore this is our h3. All right, so let's put it inside another div. Let's put another div in here. Well, let's just copy or cut all this and put them inside a div. Let's put them inside the div, and the div should have a class of links. Okay, so let's paste what we just copied inside. Right, so that will be our links. Okay, and another list should have a class of what? Links lists. Okay, so that our content will just be inside. Okay, good. So let's save this. All right, and now let's go over and target our links and contact. Okay, so let's come here and let's target our links and contact. Okay, so when you target our links and contacts, let's set the display to be grid. Okay, so display should be grid, and also our grid template columns should be 30% and 70%. Right, so we want the first column, which is for the links, to be 30%, and then the second column should be 70%. So let's see what that looks like. So without being responsive, let's just put this here. So this is how it looks like before we implement our CSS. So let's save our CSS, Ctrl S, and let's see what that effect has. Let's refresh this. Oh, no effect. Okay, so let's go back and see where the problem is. Okay, so I said links and contact. All right, so our display should be grid. Okay, so now let's think that is effective. So let's add another links to justify self to center. Okay, center, and after which we can now put the links list for the list style, let's set it to none. Okay, and also let's now put the padding of our list, padding to 0, set it to 0. Right, cool. Let's see what that looks like. Ctrl S, and let's refresh. Ctrl F4. Okay, so we have our links now up there, and our other links, our social links, down. Okay, so that would be that. So now let us look at what our links look like. So our links are just there, so with no styles. Okay, and a padding of 0. So now let's put our links in such a way that they would also be responsive to our to any of the devices. Okay, so you will realize that once you do this, our links are not well structured. You see that? So once you increase the size of your screen, the links are not well responsive. All right, so let's make them to be at least 100% each time the screen gets to that same amount of width that we used. So let's do that at media query. Let's add a media query, and we say that our max width will be equal to what? 650 pixels. Okay, so that the links and contact should have a grid template column of 100% at that screen, and that screen size should have a width of 100% at that screen size, 650 pixels. Okay, so let's save this and see what we have just achieved. So if we refresh this, you will see that each time our link is close to 750, all right, it should now be centered. Okay, so that's a good one. So it shouldn't be jumping up and down. All right, so it should just be that. Okay, another approach that you can do on your CSS would be to add your font colors and your font styles. Okay, so you can have a font family. So let's see how that goes. So first off, you can come to the beginning of your CSS, and you can put in your body, the body style of your CSS. Let me see if I can increase the font style, font size. Okay, so that's that. So now you can put in the body section, and then you can add a font family, and you can set it to anything that you love, any of the font styles that you will love. So for this tutorial, let's use Noto Sans. Okay, and then let's also put in the sans serif. Okay, and also there, once you're done with this, let's see the impact it has now. Let's Ctrl S and let us go over to our portfolio, and let's see the effect that our changes have. So this was the previous one, so let's refresh and see. Yeah, so you see that the text has changed, so the font has changed on the body. So don't forget that all we actually targeted was everything in the body section of our font. So this is our font, this is our body section, so everything inside the body section, so which means everything inside our the body section of our project. Okay, so also another thing that you can also target is the H1s and the H2s. Okay, so the H1s and also the H2s. Let's also include H3s and H4s. And now the headers, like we previously said, are from H1 to H6. Okay, so here we have font family, and then we have it to be Roboto Mono. Okay, and there we can also put in a monospace on that. Okay, so let's save, Ctrl S, and let's see the impact on our site. Okay, so that's a pretty one. Okay, that's a pretty font change. Okay, so those are the additional things that you can do on your CSS. So now let's go to the footer of our page, and when you go to the footer here, you will see that we need our links to be on one side and our email to be on the other side, that is on the same row or two columns. Okay, so let's do that. So when we come here, we have our form action. Okay, so this is going to be a div. So I think what we can do is to get the emails on one side and the other ones on the other side. Okay, so then the contact form should be on another side. So let's take this to be a div. So let's this div be inside a container. Okay, so let's put this div here and cut it down. Let's add it here. Control V. Right. So now let's name this div to be what? We can name it to be now let's see what else we can do. So we want to target our form. So let's target our form. Yes, look at the form area or the form input and our text area. Now this can be put in any order, not necessarily going to be after the paragraph tag. Shouldn't necessarily be only after the paragraph tag. You can put it even at the end of the CSS. So with this, you can add a padding of 5 pixel, and then you can add a border radius of 5 pixel. Also, then you can add a width of, let's say, 240 pixel. Our form, let's see our form. Let's target our form, and we can see that the width is 250 pixels, and also the margin is 0 and it's auto. Okay, good. So now let's also go ahead and target the form input. The form input will be of type submit. Submit. And the width should be 250 pixels. Okay. Also, now we have the .submit button wrapper and our button wrapper, which will be submit. What do we have? Our button wrapper, that will be submit. Okay, so that's submit button. We can now say that the margin should be 20 pixels and 0. Okay, so let's save and refresh our page again, and there we have it. We have our links on one side now and the email on the other side, or the form. Okay, so Let's also see what is different. Why is our link on this side and our email is supposed to be up there? Let's see why it's like that. Where's that? Links div. Okay, so that's probably because we added another div. So let's remove that div and see what we can achieve with that. Let's save and go over to our page and refresh. When we refresh our page, still the same thing. Okay, let's look more into why that is. So our email is here, our label for message and email message. Let me see, email message. Okay, links. So the links is outside. Okay, so let me see that from here. So you have a div, you have action, div action, email, that. Okay, that's that. And also we would see that if we inspect, and you see that our form, they might not necessarily be responsive, so we have to tackle that responsiveness. All right, so let's go over to tackle that responsiveness and go more right in. Okay, all right, so let's tackle the responsiveness on the media query. Over here, let's say media, we have that the maximum width should be. Let's use the media query from the links and contact. Okay, because I believe that the links and contacts are the same thing. So links and contact is here. Oh, I think this is where the issue is, because we have to put our form inside of the links and contacts. Oh, it has to be inside. It has to be inside. Yes. So that is where the problem is. Control X, and it should be Control V. So it should be div. All right. So let's save that and let's see. Let's refresh. And you can see that our links and email are almost on the same line. Okay, so now let's see what we can do. Okay, so inside our links and contact, let's go ahead and put in the media query. Oh, okay, should be H4 says email. Okay, good. So that's that. So let's save. Level 4. Level 4 email. Email input type. H4. H8. So let's put in H8. H4. Compute. Let's hold on. Message. Message, this area. Message, control. Text again. I should run that here. Alright. Yeah. Message. Okay, so submit. Alright, so I think that will be all for this section. In the next section we will be looking more at the various JavaScript functionalities for our form. Okay, good. Okay, so another thing that we can look at is how to change the background color of our website. So our website seems to be very white, as the case may be. So let's look at how we can change the background color. So the background color is just right here at our CSS. Let's see what we can do at our CSS. So we see that our CSS, we have stipulated the body tag, right? So the body tag is quite here. Now let us see how to change the background color. So on the body, let's add background color. As you type, you would notice that the background color would surface. And then now you can choose the background color of your choice. So I want to choose it to be aquamarine or another. Now when you check the aquamarine, you would see the code for aquamarine. So it starts with #7FF. Let me increase this font. So it starts with #7FFFD4. So you can either write this code or you just click on the aquamarine and it automatically gets your color written. So let's see how it will look now let's save, Ctrl S, and let us refresh our page. So when we refresh, look at how our page has changed color. Okay, so that is how to change the color of our page. And now let's go ahead to put in, let's also change the font color of our page. So the font color, the same way we did the background color, we can change the color to be what? To be, let's say, black. Alright, or let's change it to brown. Alright, so let's Ctrl S and let's see what we'll get there. We'll refresh. We'll see that our font colors are now brown. Okay, so this doesn't look so great, but it's just enough to show you what is doable on the HTML and CSS.